to the channel, Trucker Rod, and the S.E.E channel here. And I probably didn't put this thing in landscape mode now, did I? I probably did not. Well, poop on me, right? Alright. Let's get all the parameters. And as you can tell, I'm not in the truck. And I got me a little makeshift phone stand here on the deck of my house. So we are home. I got home today, Thursday. Uh, they called me Monday, and I grabbed a backhaul on my way back into Michigan, and got me a little guy here. He's craving for my attention right now, so I'll show you him. Let's get you guys over here. Close. So I just got done with the backyard. I just weed whipped, cut into places, as they say, and I got the backyard done. I just have the sides and the front. This little guy, hey, he is jonesing. This is Benny, and he took to me the first day we got him. We were foster parents for a dachshund rescue that their owner unexpectedly and untimely passed away in her sleep at 45 years old. So the family was looking to dissolve the business because it was her passion. Everyone else had careers. So he was in limbo coming up from Florida. And it took about this much time for me to say, yeah, we'll just keep him. And we've had him better part of 8 years, buddy. And he has just been following me around and wanting attention like this, which is great. He relaxes me when I get home. He helps me make that transition when I'm wound up and all wiry. I'm going to get over here, buddy. Hang out in your bed there. So he helps me transition when I decompress. You know, when you're on the road and, whoops, sorry folks, get you turned around here. And let's back up a little bit. So, we're going to talk about mental health and trucking, and I can talk slightly in mental health for one documentation is I got a minor in psychology in when I was getting my bachelor's, going and of course spending my time in chiropractic school, because also I had to do patient practitioner classes, which put the doctor and people would role play as a patient or families or a patient's family, where you had to present your loved one has cancer, and you had to then they had to put you through the paces of reacting to it and helping the family adjust and go forward. So, so yeah, I do have. I spent a better part of 5 years in school on a lot of that training. Like I said, a lot of I want to say medicine, exercise physiologist in my bachelor's degree, and then of course chiropractic school, and then had to give that up for personal reasons to take care of more priority than going to school. Um, I'm going to give you some content for us to kind of hit some points on in the trucking industry. One being some scenarios that have played out, and I'm not going to sit here and give you links to articles and all that. I'm just giving you my life experiences of what I've seen, what I've been through, and sorry folks, hit the wrong button here. So I'm going to give you some life experiences and all that jazz. So one being some content for us to have some points to discuss on. The first one is I had known a person where I had lived in where we grew up at. and she had a master's degree in psychology. Uh, we had gone out on a few dates, but nothing ever serious. And she moved forward and left the area and got married and all that. She had 3 children. Um, she had battled depression, which really surprised me with her education background. A mile down the road from us, it was a interstate, and in the middle of, or I want to say early morning hours, she stood in the shadows of an overpass and stepped out in front of a what would be a bakery or bread truck coming down the expressway and committed suicide. Um, Not what everyone wants to hear kicking this off, but not so much what went through her head, but then she's gone. She had it in her head she's checking out. But that driver, and that's what everyone said, is that driver literally couldn't go back to work upon what they had interviewed, and this was some years ago. I want to say 15 years ago or more. And that driver, has now got to live with that on his conscience. And then some other scenarios I've seen. I've seen trucking offices locked down because a driver's disgruntled. And the thing of it is back in the early days before all the GPS and tracking and seeing where the driver is at and where the truck is at, you couldn't. The driver just got pissed off, said, "I will be up there to correct you, you people," and not knowing when they were going to show up. Um, you know, Driver sitting outside in the parking lot, ready to come in and pretty much start a fight. We have seen, and you can Google many articles of disgruntled drivers, and I apologize if I'm in the shadows now, and I may have to adjust that because that looks like. Sorry about that. Let's see if we can get a little bit better lighting. All right, I'm just gonna have to hold the phone over here. So you can Google many articles of drivers that have come back into the yard and they have ran their truck into the office. And the thing of it is that was a pretty common thing. Drivers coming back, running over into or dragging their boss's nice vehicle, driving the truck into the office, abandoning the truck, thrashing the truck, and they snap for whatever reasons. They're not getting a good load, they're not getting paid, their pay got short, and they snap. Those are some mental attributes of what we deal with out here in the trucking world. And what else? Drivers also go through long, well, weeks on end. I've done it, weeks on end away from home. Um, I think I spent from Labor Day, the day after Labor Day of 2018 till going into the week of Thanksgiving. I was out on the road nonstop. And many drivers elect to do that, but they live out there. And I can tell you, the YouTubers that live out on the road, they don't have an apartment, they don't have a house, and they don't even own a car. But that's their life because they're banking all the money that way. And why be out on the road, say 28 out of 30 days a month? So, they can adjust. But there's many folks that live with having a wife, a kid, and a family, and they are getting pressured. The driver gets pressured from the wife, the children. Either they don't like that lifestyle, that long hours away from home. I'm going to get them walk around because that lighting is just horrible. So they, how do I want to say this? They get pressured. The wife does not tolerate, will not tolerate that because, they have young children at home and it puts pressure on the driver. to the point, if he doesn't make changes or adjustments, they ended up in, which I did. I was in divorce, but I was working like, back in those days, it was not uncommon this time of year to be working 80 to 100 hours. Whether I was over the road or I was running local heavy haul around the state of Michigan. And after a while, your significant other, they get lonely. Someone else is around to give them more attention than you can in your short amount of time that you're home. And, you know, that can drain on you. I ended up selling my house, my boat, my tools. I sold everything, went off to school because I couldn't do that lifestyle after that divorce into another relationship. And I thought the right thing to do was reinvent my career and go off. I got talked into chiropractic and healthcare, and that ended up, I didn't finish that, but I was able to fall back on my bachelor's degree, and that was a failure, financial failure. So here I am, 11 years now, next month, September, back in the driving, but I have a very supportive spouse. I am also an older man, a more educated man that understands that there's got to be some give and take. When I come home, I get the necessities done around here. Like today, I got home, we went and ran errands, got groceries. I did the backyard so the dogs had, because these little wiener dogs don't like tall grass, things like that. And then I give you a little backyard view. The birds were just over here in the bird bath, and I apologize for steering off from that subject. But yeah, we got a bird sanctuary here, Oriole feeder, and that sun's coming down where it's just glaring everything right now. So we have, that's the best it's gonna do. So, and then I got the grill out, and I still got to do the side yard and all that. Of course, all these decks, and even the one I'm on, built by me. I got help from my son and daughter on that one. My wife helped me with that one. There was nothing over there but grass and some mud and a couple pavers. But yeah. So going through a divorce was a big adjustment. And with that adjustment, I had to look in the mirror. I didn't go, obviously there was some infidelity. And so for that, um, I decided to part ways, but I also had to look in the mirror and say, what do I need to do to be a better man for the next person that may come in my life? And I addressed those even in all my psychology and psychiatry classes that I got into. I would consult with a lot of the professors and doctors in that, and I was very happy to be able to open the can of worms on that. I'm just clipping you guys back up here. This little makeshift walking around. That sun is just glaring just right. That it's not doing any justice looking out in the yard. So a lot of drivers have committed suicide in their trucks at truck stops from depression, and it's nothing. It's no laughing matter, and it's not. You know, when you're putting in, even for me, say 5, 6 days a week out on the road, you're in that fiberglass box. You're in, communication with your customers, and fortunate I can talk to my wife because she's not working. But when there's days when her health is very offset and bad, um, those are days I can't just call her and just vent or just sit there and just blab along. The CB used to be a good way of communicating and just venting, getting your problems out there with other drivers, because everybody knew, how to help each other. And it was a brotherhood that helped each other back then. But the CBs have long gone, and I'd say in the last, I've been in that truck since December of 22, 23. I'm sorry, 23. And I probably had the longest conversations, probably two conversations at the length of 15 minutes. Most people don't want to converse. Most are on their headsets. Maybe they got, I can see a lot of folks that probably are talking to their significant others on their headsets, or they got friends or family, mom and dad that are retired, that they have the time to chit chat with them for long stretches of time, when you're winding down the road for hours on end. Um, Not a lot of people have that. Not a lot of people have family to call on the phone, um, or friends, anything like that. And after a while, there's days when you can go down a dark hole and start having deep, dark thoughts. And, you know, you start questioning, what is your purpose here? Why am I here? What am I doing? You start outlandishly saying those to yourself in the truck, and it's frustrating. Um, I've had those, even when I was not so much with this company as much as I have my frustrations, my days when I'm looking forward to just getting home and I'm fighting traffic, the truck's breaking down, adverse weather, and you're just like, inside when you've had enough of being in there and it's time to go home and unplug and do something different. And I would set that camera up right directly where the sun is coming down. Wouldn't that, isn't that just wonderful? Gonna pop down in the leaves here pretty soon. So, and to be on medications, to have a psyche valve and come up with some positive aspect on a psyche valve, most drivers know that's gonna ruin your CDL, having your CDL, or maybe put restrictions on your CDL, or even on your med card. And that even plays on people. I've seen when I worked in the hospital in the cath lab. I've seen guys have triple and quadruple bypasses and stents, and they're like, I'm a tow truck driver, I'm a truck driver. And these guys would have a long road of recovery, and then I would see them every year for a stress test, just to keep their CDL up, because they'd have to do that for their med card. And I'm sure that's frustrating and depressing as all get up. Um, to know that the mortality rate has diminished down, to where your length of stay here on Earth, when you've had major surgery like that, you pretty much know, once you've had open heart surgery and that, your lifespan's already shortened up quite a bit. How much? It all depends on how, for every action, there's a reaction, and how you handle the reaction and go forward and be positive and strong and take better care of yourself. It is a stressful life out there. Um, Driving truck, being away from home, you're missing. And when you have kids and family, and if you're strong with your family and you have, whether your immediate family, your wife and children, you start missing weddings. I've done that. Missing funerals. I've already missed two in the last since COVID. Father-in-laws. Uh, Another friend of mine. What else, Laura? There was another one I couldn't make, but I think three or four funerals. We did make some funerals where I just told the company, "Hey, I just got to take a day off." That's when I was running some day runs, and I'd say, I have someone else run my run. I'm gonna drive for the day and go see a friend, because he passed away. I've had a lot of close friends that have died, and most of our friends that have died have been anywhere from the ages of 35 to 50, heart and or cancer. And other than my father-in-law being in his 80s, and just in at the beginning of COVID, so the wife and I already had that discussion this last week of how shitty the hospital handled that. So, but yeah, there is a lot of depression out there. Guys are, if the drivers don't have an outlet, you really need to have an outlet. Um, I know the TA, some Flying J's, they have that chapel, that semi truck chapel that's positioned there at many of them, and it gives drivers a place to go when they're lost, lonely, and or maybe going through something in their life that they can't be home for. And that's what really wears on a driver is when you're needed at home the most and you're across the country, and you can't get back to immediately take care of things. I know we had how do you want to say immediate. One of our dogs got deathly sick. My wife never had kids. She's only known these dash hounds, and she is the dash hound whisperer in my eyes. And yeah, dead Sandy, Chris. I made Sandy's. I went to her celebration because I got up and spoke on behalf of what Laura is saying there. Sandy and her husband. I just talked to Kevin, my mechanic, my bike mechanic. I raced. That'll be a subject for another day. My son and I, for a decade, were hot and heavy into BMX Supercross, and Bicycle Headquarters in Midland, Michigan, was our main sponsor. And Kevin and his dad, mom, Sunday's his mom, that we'd just go in like put it on my tab, or they would just cover it. But good times. But anyhow, we made that funeral the celebration of life, and I went to I think a couple celebration of lives already because they were cancer. One of them was a cancer victim, and they didn't want the body to be seen. So yeah, and I've dealt with family that has had to bury their own children from cancer, and yeah, it's like you're hurting with them because you look and you say, "Unfortunate, my kids are still doing well." But I've missed a lot on their childhood. When you're driving down the road, say on a Sunday or say a Tuesday night, and you look over 6 o'clock in the evening and you see Little League ball going on, and you know your kid's playing, but you're out there making the money, and you're missing out. Um, I missed a lot of school functions of my daughter, of hers, and you know, she got cheesed out more than my son, but we have a better relationship now than we did then. But yeah, it's what every driver goes through when they're out there and away from home, sacrificing everything that everyone else takes for granted. And I've seen that time and time again when I would work weekends, holidays, and nights at the hospital. And people would be like, just call in. Come on, let's go out and party. Let's go do this. Let's go do that. And it's like, no, I've got obligations at work, because the people at home depend on me to support them. And it's the same here. And hence why we've been building businesses so I can have an exit strategy to get out of the truck. Um, a lot of guys don't have an outlet. They're just sitting there holding on the steering wheel, and it's like, what do I do next? Unless they have a major health issue or they have to shut down. Now, I have seen when I ran reefer as a float driver back in 2019, I got a gentleman's truck and I finished it out until COVID hit, and then they shut the company down. But the gentleman and his wife, he had to quit driving. She had to quit her job as a teacher or a school administrator, and they went to California. Their son was a naval officer, 30-year-old young man as a naval officer, and he got brain cancer. So they dropped everything they were doing career wise, walked away from it, went out there and sat with him and cared and, bedside caring for him. What came of it, I don't know, but that was all that was explained to me. So I cleaned out his personal effects and put them in a box for them to mail to him, but out of the truck. So you get a lot of those calls. You, I've gotten a lot of calls for deaths that have happened while being out on the road, and it's like, when I get back, I'll be right there. It's usually pretty hard unless it's so immediate that, hey, your wife just got shot or sent to the ER, or your house burned down. Obviously, I'm parking the truck, grabbing a flight, and going home. If it's someone outside of the circle of the wife and kids, then it's like, when I get back, I'm making calls saying, hey, I'm out of the truck until I can, get back, and I got to go take care of this. And that's happened a couple times. But yeah, there's nothing to mock or make fun of anyone's mental status as far as if they really have something going on. Now, even being out there in the social media realm and exposing yourself out there leads for um, criticism and pandering and all that. Um, who do we have there? Hey, Tommy, how you doing tonight, my man? Tommy, yeah, you inspired me to at least talk about this from just my experiences over the last 5 decades of driving, and just between working in healthcare and having a degree and a minor in psychology. So I thought, people should understand that when you're stuck in solitude and you start, your brain just starts running around with some weird thoughts, and it takes you down a rabbit hole, and usually it could be good, bad, or indifferent. It just depends on, what is happening to you at that time, whether it's something good or something bad. um, yeah, so a lot of, I want to say, a lot of guys, they, the truck stops have really gotten away from, they're more of travel centers. And it's, it used to be truck stops for truck drivers to stop and get a meal, and they were catered to. Now we're just treated like second class citizens at the shipper and receiver. Most companies will treat their drivers like dog shit. And because they just want an ample body in there holding the steering wheel and making money. And the bottom line is, the companies and the owners only want the bottom line. And you will see that a lot. And they will use and abuse drivers. And that's the other part that plays on their psyche, and gives them bad health, especially mental health, to where some of them will just walk away from the industry and say, I will never go back to that, because they might as well just be in an abusive relationship than sit there and take that just to try to make a paycheck. Um, Yeah, truck stops used to be catered to the drivers. Now they're called travel centers, and now you go in there and you're trying to get a bathroom break. You're trying to get in and get out because the clock is ticking, and you got a family of five standing there trying to figure out how many bags of chips, pop, candy, and all that. You know, and it'd be nice if they could get all that separated, but most of the time, like the Loves and the Pilots, they have separate counters, but anymore. Most don't even have them manned very well. But yeah, to get back on the road, and you're trying to make deadlines, and you're pressured all the time, and you're wound up tight as a banjo string. Then you get home, and then you're trying to unwind and relax just enough to make the transition, whether you're home for a couple days or a week. And for a lot of guys, it is hard. It is hard to get out of that truck if you're out 1, 2, 4 weeks at a time, or a few months, and then you're coming home, transition back to what everyone's doing normally at home, and then you're having to jump in on the rails, of their train and go along and try to play catch up. And the wife keeps me abreast of things going on here. And like I said, I told her, I said, I thanked her for being with me because I am I am the most difficult SOB to live with. I'm high energy, high strung, always on the go. I and if I'm shut down, I either got to be completely wore out or I'm sick. Um, but I've got things going on all the time. I'm not sitting still. I got to get things done, and there's things I want to go achieve and further myself on. So there's just the trucking is not just the only thing I do. And a lot of guys, that's all they can handle. They go out there, they do their time, they come home, and they're just like spent. And then they're no good to their families because then they're so used up to try to get them out on a vacation or a day trip or family functions. And, it's hard. And if a wife or a spouse, girlfriend doesn't understand that, luckily my wife now has uh, my son's mother was with me for the first 12 years, and this one is coming up on that. And once she surpasses that, she's pretty much going to surpass everything. She'll be the queen bee of everything in my life. But you got to have at least that one person um, to keep you grounded and to go to and to give you that outlet to be able to talk and vent, you know. And there was that. I kind of chuckled at that scene in with Denzel Washington in Unstoppable when he was on the train talking about his late wife when she died, and and he was talking about, yeah, she'd always hear about, you know, always call her and tell her about my days and who I'm putting up with, looking at Chris Pine over there, but and I kind of chuckled because my wife kind of knew what that meant, and some days, she'll call me at 3, 4 in the morning because she can see me when I'm moving and just, how you holding up? How you doing? What's going on? And, how's your day looking, going forward? How many stops you going to have? And then we can chit chat 2, 3 hours. And then I say, look, I'm getting close to my stop. Let me start making, adjustments to get in there because I like to, at least get my head into the game when I roll into town and make sure I'm not going to stumble over anyone and pull in correctly. So I don't like being distracted for the most part, getting to the customer, backing in, and all that. But yeah, hey, Tommy, anything you want to give some input on, or maybe after the stream, throw in the comments? Um, I know this a lot of that hits home too. You're out there a lot of weeks putting in some long hours. He runs from the Midwest all the way out to Idaho and Utah and then back, and he's pounding the miles down as a lot of the other people I know. Um, Unappreciated, yeah, and that's the thing too is you will see, like I said, the shippers and receivers, but even people in general when they're driving, you're so unappreciated. It was something in the 80s and 90s when little kids would just be in awe when you pulled in to maybe a little party store or something just to get a pop because there was no truck stops nearby and you wanted to grab, soda or something like that. And, just in awe, looking at the truck and all that. Most of these kids now, I can't believe how many people literally are skidding your front bumper just because they need to get ahead of you to exit off the highway. And it's like, you couldn't just sit behind me for 3 seconds to exit. And it just amazes me how people take their own lives in their hands. You know, and you see some horrific accidents out there. And you're appreciative. It's not your family. And it tightens up your belt to I can probably sit over here now. The sun's gone down. And the big boy over there, he's wanting to go in, aren't you? You're like, I'm bored. He's like me. He's high strung. He's his big mouth and wiry, especially at the campground. But he loves being on his golf cart, don't you? I love golf cart rides. And I may come to you guys this weekend or Labor Day weekend by the lake there at the campground when we go down to the other property. We're going to head down tomorrow morning. That's why I've been in a bum rush to get a lot of stuff done today. We hadn't been home here at the main house for 4 weeks. So lawn was overdue, and she had to come back and get dog appointments and groceries and jazz like that. But the one thing we do is we keep an open communication. We don't argue as much as we just debate on things. And she'll bring things into light that I should know at times, um, whether it's people's feelings. And the other thing, too, is she has given me these little like K cups of bread and wine and sent me a prayer that I say every night. Breaking bread, drinking wine. She just said you need to have a little bit more God and Jesus in your life, you know, and not be so in limbo. She goes, I worry about you if something happens and where your soul's going to go. And she does. She worries a lot about me into that realm and aspect of, not only here today, but what's going to happen to me later on. She worries more about me than she worries about her own self with all the surgeries and everything that's gone on. And I can't tell you how many times I have gotten out of the truck. I literally got out of the truck when she was just coming out of surgery, and her brother and sister, her sister-in-law and brother was there to see to it, because sometimes family had to be there because I couldn't be there on a scheduled surgery because then I'd have to take the whole week off, and I just couldn't afford to do that. But there was a lot of times I took time off her cervical surgeries. I took the week off because I knew she was going to need help at home. And there was quite a few days. She's had both hips replaced at 40 years old. And heck, I took 2 months off for that. That was before I got into driving. But, you got loved ones at home. You got that you got to worry about and you got to take care of. And that plays on you. That plays on you as a truck driver because now you're out there, you're hauling 80,000 pound load. You got a family at home that depends on you. You got people around you that depend on that you're not going to do something stupid and run them over. And that you're in a straight frame of mind and don't do anything harsh because your boss pissed you off or you and your wife had a fight or something and then you take it out behind the wheel. Many guys have done that and it's cost other people lives. It's cost them their lives or they've gone to prison. So what else can we touch on that, just my life experiences into that field and even from being on the healthcare side, seeing people come in from such things, going down, people losing their livelihood, their job, their wife, their house, everything that identifies them. And next thing they're down a dark hole with whiskey and cocaine binging, um, trying to implode and kill themselves. And I've seen that on the healthcare side, but the trucking side, um, I don't know. Most of the guys like me, we're doing pretty good. I think we've survived a lot of the crap that the Gen X drivers like me that have come up through the 80s and 90s. I think we're pretty well balanced out now. I want to say it was a tougher time then, definitely a tougher time. Is it a tougher time now? Well, if you want to look at freight rates and all that, yeah, but the trucks just, everything has gotten to where, everything's got the driver so dumbed down because they got so much IT in it. So it leaves a lot of guys, and it's even this week, go buy a damn truck on I-94 today after I picked my load up in Jackson, Michigan, going towards Kalamazoo, Michigan on I-94. Freaking Volvo drivers, left leg up, and they're on their damn phone. And I'm like, you're not in a reactionary set that if something happens, how are you gonna grab the wheel, adjust the brakes, react? And I don't know. And yet I've seen people argue with me and saying, well, you're affecting my personal space, my personal time. I should be able to have that phone whatever I do. And that's their mindset, um, that entitlement. And and I've seen an engineer that was working on, what was that, the Nissan Leaf or whatever, the EV self-driving car or whatever it was. And he says, oh, you're an old dude. This was back in 2018, and we were having a he was you know interested in what I did, and he goes, what do you think of the autonomous and all that, because he was on the engineering of, for a car doing that. And I just said, I don't care for it. And he goes, well, the planes have already done it. The planes have already got the mapping. All the pilots do is lift off and take off and land. The autopilot does everything else in between. And I'm like, all right, well. And they said they already got the mapping down on the road, so it's just a matter of time. I said, go for it, coachies. I said, I'll be very interested when that winter storms hit on I-80 through the Rockies and all that, and let me know how that works out for you. But I'm not on board. And by the time that all comes into fruition and everyone's playing bumper cars, I want to be sitting on the porch, having my stogie, and just saying I'm glad I'm not out there, you know, bobbing and weaving the bullets of just craziness out there on the roads. That's what I see now. Is it's more of the other drivers and the younger, inexperienced, whether it's the foreign drivers or it's the younger American drivers that just have that, I got to be on my phone because I'm bored out here, and that's how they're passing the time. Um, but in the old days, we had the CBs. We got to know each other. We actually talked to each other. We didn't have our heads down going in the truck stop and walking around in that. People were saying, "Hey, how are you? Nice truck. How do you like working for that company?" And conversations got started, and you didn't know anyone from Adam, but that's the way it was back then. And people just talk to each other. And now it's like people get spooked and scared if you start a conversation with them. They feel uncomfortable, and it feels weird to them to talk to strangers at truck stops. Communion cups, spouses that cheat. Yeah, yeah, I've been a victim of that, and I've had other friends that were victims of it too. And it is what it is. Um, you definitely got to balance that your wife and kids get a piece of you one way or another when you're away from home out on the road. And that's not just truck driving. I've stayed, when I ran my day cab, I'd still be out, say 3, 4 days in the day cab, and I'd stay at hotels. Look at all the CSX, railroad workers, and or contractors that are weeks to months out away from home. Road construction, that they're out of town and gone for a whole season. They may come home on the holidays, but they hope the wife and kids are still there when they get back. But it's got to be a definite understanding on your spouse, whether you're a female driver or a male driver. You um you got to make sure they get some of your attention too, because that's why you committed to them. And And a lot of companies offer the ESP employee, what do they call that? The EPS or ESP, employee something for them to go seek mental, psychologist and all that for the mental health and all that. Especially, not only just long hours, even if you're home every night, but you're working, back then, for most of the 90s, other than the late 90s, the last 3, 4 years of the 90s was I over the road, but I was, you know, local, but I'd work 16, 18 hours a day. And so by the weekends, you're burned out and you're just sucking it up, just trying to, have time and entertain with the family or, with the wife and kids. And, if you sat down any length of time, you're just like, boom, out. And that wasn't uncommon back then. I was younger, but I don't do that anymore. Um, Winter's coming up, so when we shut the other property up, then I can concentrate just here, and we won't be commuting down there 2 hours, one way. And then I can, we can concentrate more on some stuff up here that we got going on for this winter. There's a lot of stuff going to be shaking and moving around the house here, but I told her let's just finish out the next couple months and then we can make the transition. I got rabbits over here. I get a boat ton of rabbits. We get raccoons, possums, all the birds. Um, we got an apple tree out here. Dry. I just mowed up a bunch of apples before we went live, and get a lot of deer come fall. There'll be a lot of doe and her fawns. They'll be sitting out here in the woods, and they'll come up gnawing the apples on the ground, and some that are hanging off the tree. But I've come out on a full harvest moon night, and just the moon just lighting up the backyard, and then the deer just out here in the backyard, just feasting. So it's this is we built this backyard, my wife and I. It's the first thing we did before we finished the garage. Which, if you guys would do me a favor, and my RK Auto Detailing, I'll put that in. I think I put that in the description down there. Um, I'm like 8 subscribers away from being able to go live there, and then I can bring you guys along on some quick projects. I can't really set up production like I used to because I'm just too busy with so many cars that are going back to back now. And yeah, we finished the garage off, so I could use that for making money. But so yeah, there's a lot of guys that, and you'll see these guys. You'll see. I've seen Alex at Mother Trucker that interview these guys that are 80 some years old and they're still hanging on the steering wheel, and that's all they know. They know nothing else, and they're gonna hang on to that until they die because once they got in there, and it gets in your blood. I mean, I enjoy driving, but I don't like being away from home. I don't want to do this when I'm 70 years old. So that's why I just said, hey, I'm gonna just move on to something else, and we're working towards that. But you gotta, hey, don't come here, sit down. Yeah, he's getting impatient. That's his impatient bark. Oh, and he's seen the rabbit, and the rabbit's moving around. Yep, you see him. But yeah, you you gotta really be in touch with yourself, with knowing that there's a problem, and if you're getting depressed, if you're getting uh, lonely or something like that, you should really take the initiative to get out of the truck. Maybe align yourself with something more local where you can take some more downtime. Like going to a 8, 10 hour a day job and then coming home and being able to reset your mind and body. I did that for the time I was in healthcare. When I left trucking and spent 14 years in healthcare, and there was years when I was racing too. Um, I was working out. I was doing fun things besides working. I was working two jobs. I was still working as a mechanic and equipment operator, besides working in the hospital because, well, a lot of people in the community I grew up in knew me and just kept asking me, "You want to come back and we need some seasonal help?" Sure, um, let me just set my schedule on how everything works for me, whether I was in school or I was at the hospital. But I've always worked at more than one job. But I think going forward in the future, when I leave trucking, it's I told the wife we gotta reestablish our marriage. You want to come get him? My wife's in the chat there, so um, she's behind the wall here, so you're gonna see the door open. He's either barking to go in or he's barking at that rabbit that's out here pestering him. But it's been a good night here at home. I mean, finally, the humidity and heat index, this humidity here in the Midwest is just, it gets to be where you're just walking around and you're just soaking wet. And it's just sickening, to say the least. I usually go and drive truck just because it's more relaxing. I don't have to be out in the elements getting all sweaty and dirty. But yeah, yeah, I don't know. He wants in. So, and I appreciate you guys being here. How long have we been on here? And I'm kind of mumbling right now. I was looking for some input. Miss Laura was giving me some stuff that assistance program, EAP, but yeah, employee assistance program. Many companies offer that. Businesses, whether you're a driver and healthcare offered it, but it gives you a way to go talk to someone. Whether you're having issues at work with coworkers or you have issues at home, that way you keep that mental state straight and narrow and keep it, keep all that dark stuff out of your life so you can prosper and move on. Um, I went through some trial times back 06, 07, and the psychologist I was talking with a guy for about 6 months. He put me on some meds. I forget what it was called, but I literally had no emotion. Like, it kept you numb. It numbed you from the world. And I said, I can't do this. So he goes, well, then you have to experience everything that the life's going to get you. This is what people want to feel. They want to feel numb. So when all the negativity hits them in life, they just stay numb to it. Whether it's medications or it's alcohol, it's drugs. You see that a lot. You see that a lot with artists, actors, athletes, um, you know, uh, wealthy people, and you wonder, man, they had everything going for them, but you wonder how much burden or depression they carried on their shoulders. And that's the thing, is the unsung heroes of just being out on the road. And the truck drivers, they just deal with it. They deal with the weather, the elements, shippers, receivers, horrible bosses, um, trucks that beat them up, break down. Maybe their wife's nagging on them, and we go through a lot. And so appreciate a driver. You see them, you don't thank them. I've had a lot of people, especially during COVID, come up to me, didn't know them from Adam, and just thank me. Can I get your food for you or something like that? And I'm like, yeah, sure, because it's never happened before. In the 80s and 90s when I started, there was nothing like that. You're just a dirty old truck driver any more than a coal miner, just or an auto mechanic. Oh, you're just one of those people. You're beneath me. But yeah, not anymore. I mean, yeah, a lot of these non-domicile CDLs and foreign actors that are here driving illegally are really taking that away from us now, but they should understand that we're all not like that. um, I carry myself very professional. I dress the part when I'm in the truck delivering. I haven't gotten to a point where I'm so mentally and physically lazy and fatigued that I just give up. I get up and play the part every day, putting on my boots, putting on the attire, all my PPE, whatever I need to make my deliveries, be very presentable and sociable with the customers. And that's just it. You had to do that in the day. But the shippers and receivers back then treated drivers we got treated so shitty back then, 35, 40 years ago, that it was not uncommon to see drivers, and I want to say dispatchers, shippers and receivers get into it, fist fights and all that, and just all kinds of shit. Um, you know, I've had my I've had my hot head go off back in the day, in my 20s and 30s over that, and it's not so much now. Different mindset than it was then. The pay is better now than it was then. For me, at least. Probably a lot of other guys are like, man, the pay's gone down. But I guess it depends on how you've aligned yourself in trucking. We've talked about that before. But a lot of guys can get depressed because they're out there spinning their wheels and they're not making the money like they thought they were going to, or they were promised they were going to, and then it becomes a big letdown. And they invested time and effort at whether in CDL school and all this, and then their family gets all ramped up for them to be away from home, and so there's a lot of things you got to look at yourself in the mirror as a driver, whether male or female, and just look and say, am I giving the world the best of me? And if not, what can you do to change that? And sometimes, like I did, I liquidated everything. I got out of trucking and I said I got to reinvent myself because I didn't like the person I was. And I was either going to kill myself or kill someone else because of the cowboy driving I was doing, running long hours, and it was going to catch up to me. Um, when you and death are having a smoke together, and at some point, um, it's going to catch you, and you got to know when to maybe step away for a while, or maybe just take a local job and get yourself realigned. Being over the road is not always the best money. You'd be surprised when you can do a local job and make nearly as much money and have more home life. So, and that's the key thing I'm coming around the circle on is you really got to focus on getting out of that truck and having a life. Otherwise, if you're living in that truck and you're only getting out like 10% of the time, you're going down a deep, deep dark path. And the people around you are not going to like what they see coming from you. So that's all I got. Miss Laura gave me some ideas of things I have discussed in the past and said, this, and this. And I told her, I said, hit me up with some bullet points because I was shooting from the hip tonight. I just wanted to talk on experience. Um, don't let it be the end all be all, trucking. It's a good way of life, but you definitely, and Tommy, thanks for being in there if you're still listening. Um, he gets out and he does any town he's in, he'll get out and walk around. He'll get out of the truck, walk away from his truck, take 3 mile walks and go to a bar and grill. He'll go to, where there's a live, I know he likes live bands, something where you can just get out and function in society and check out the different cultures in a different area of the country that you're experiencing. And I've gotten the chance to do that back in the day. My time frame's a little tighter now because I got so many stops. So by the end of the day, I'm normally 10, 11 hours on a restart. You're by the time you shut down, you get everything ready for the morning, get something to eat. You want to get in 8 hours. You'd be surprised how 2 to 4 hours can get burned up, and then you're like, shit, I got to get some sleep before I got to get back up. And because then you want to keep going and stay on that time frame because the next day's customers are waiting on you to get there with product they probably already got sold. sitting on your trailer and they need to get it scheduled to, they want to get it out and delivered. So, people count on you. And people like that, not only just your family, but customers too. So it's a lot of pressure. It's, you know, you don't think that you don't need a bachelor's, master's, or you don't need a doctorate to go drive truck. No, but I will say I got on the job training. I never went to truck driving school. I got thrown into farm trucks. I've got thrown into heavy haul, and they said, "There's go north, go north. Trailers loaded. Figure out how to dump it." And I got to thank my friend Ron that one day when we get out to where he's at, you guys get to meet him, and I'll have him kind of go unfiltered on the fact that all I know is he said, "Man, that damn kid, fuck, every time I turn around, he's fucking up." And I was 21, 22, but man, he goes, "I've never seen anyone that could just keep fucking up every day." And he goes, "There you go." And he goes, "But then you'll have more good days, and then when you fuck up royally." But I had some hardcore guys that didn't sugarcoat anything. I think they wanted to clobber me more than anything, but they got me on the right track and got my mindset right where it needs to be a smooth operator, be experienced, not get excited, not get pissed off at everyone, whether it's traffic and people cutting you off or shippers and receivers that are giving you a hard time. I went and picked up a backhaul today, so that was a shipper. Those guys are zipping around. There was at least 6 clamp trucks running around. Those guys had radios on, music blaring as they're going by me and all that jazz. These guys were happy, and I'm like, man, this place is rocking. Like, they're busy. In an economic downturn, these guys are looking good and happy. That's the way you want to go into a place. I've gone into places where the people are just pissed off being there, and they are miserable as hell. And talk about being a buzzkill. And then, you're just put the stuff on the trailer and let me get out of here. I want to get away from you guys. You guys are just like depressing. But yeah, um, get yourself around good, positive people, motivated people that you can look up to. Even if you're like me, 58 years old, find people you can still look up to. Um, the first kid that I looked up to, this first person, he was a kid. He was like 18, 19 years old, entrepreneur in business for himself. He and his wife went to leave to go to another state to look at some property, because not only he did automotive dealings, but he did real estate dealings. And he went out and they were going to use her car. It was like a Chevy Malibu, and he didn't want to take one of the lifted trucks. So, car has a flat. He's like, shit, he said, that's an inconvenience. So they had to take one of the bigger trucks to drive like 5 hours one way. And he's like, oh, it's not what I want to do. But I could sit here and be mad about this, but I don't have time to change a tire. We got to go. And, but he was elaborating that, if that tire wasn't flat right then and there, not to say we could be 2-3 hours down the road and that tire go flat and we're on the side of the road and it was wintertime. And, so he said, find the positive in the worst scenarios that are thrown at you. Find the positive first before you start ranting on all the negative. How inconvenienced that did you right then and there. But find the positive in it. And so when bad things happen to me, I look for the positive in it first. And when I do that, then I can just lead, into, the negative side of whatever has happened to me. But when you find the positive, you kind of settle down on getting wound up on the negative. And what's the last thing I was going to say is that kid also led me into someone I needed to be hearing, and it rewired my brain and mindset that then led me to the entrepreneurship that I am venturing towards and into, I'm into right now. But he said, you know, I've been following the motivation speeches and everything from Bob Proctor. Bob Proctor was one of the founders of, if you have ever seen on like Netflix or YouTube or anything called The Secret, that was one of Bob Proctor's projects. If you've ever listened to him, he and Tony Robbins are right up there as that motivational speaker to get you rewired and into a motivational mindset to get you off your ass and get moving and to go find what it is in life that you need to be doing. And I spent a good portion of 2+ years listening to those guys before I got into economics, finance, and investing. And once I got those guys as my foundation, everything else went into play. Because of them and having my foundation with them, it gave me the positive, but the certainty and the confidence that what I'm going forward with, I don't let the negative naysayers that like, well, why would you ever give up a secure job to go off and start a business or do this or that? And I'm like, because I know I'm going to succeed at it. I already know I'm going to. The tools are there. I just got to apply myself even more. And when that day comes and I'm done driving, I said, that time I spent in driving is going to go towards the time invested in my businesses. And when they cash flow, I can be like this. I can be live streaming at home. I can go back in the office at home. I can step out at noon, have lunch with my wife, dinner with my wife in the evening, and be in bed with my wife every night instead of being away from home and on the road. So I said, that's where I'm going. That's my achievement. That's what I'm starting these businesses for, is not only to take care of us monetarily, but also buy back our time. So you got to have that exit strategy, because otherwise I've seen so many guys just hanging on that steering wheel and they have no out. Like, man, I am on this rocket ship and I don't know how to get off it. And I don't know what else to do in life unless something major happens to them. Like I said, you know, for me, it was a divorce and liquidation of everything I ever accumulated materialistic wise. And I went off to school with clothes and like pictures and stuff. Anything I could pack in a Geo Metro is what I spent 5 years in school driving a Geo Metro, and what I could pack, and that's what I owned. And along the way, I just picked up a bed, a dresser, and a desk. And that's all I had to my worldly possessions until I got out of school and I started working in the hospital. Then I started accumulating more stuff. But yeah. So when you've had everything, you get rid of it. I got rid of it all um, to reinvent myself. But to get to, I don't want to say lose it. I didn't lose it. I got rid of it because I'm like, it doesn't mean anything to me. And to start over in life. And this will be just a paradigm shift for the wife and I in a few years when we have our businesses going. We're just basically going to do a paradigm shift of what I'm on right now with trucking and the detailing and all this, but it's just going to be a shift where then I'm going to be closing the book, not a chapter, but just closing the book on that, starting a new book and writing a new book going forward with that. And you know, we'll have a full studio of, you know, doing YouTube stuff like this, and being able to talk about and bringing, you know, people to talk about things in life that will help make you money and jazz like that. But it's not anything I want to talk about right now because we're still in the infancy stages of doing it ourselves. So there's nothing of experience or I can elaborate on in here. But you got to find the positive in life. And you definitely got to look hard and deep when you look in that mirror at yourself of who's really bringing me down. You would be surprised how many close, it could be up to your parents, to your siblings. It could be people that are toxic and bringing you down, that are holding you back. And you're not even knowing it because your mindset is, well, they're my family. I have to do this and that and this. But sometimes you may have to put distance between them and you if you're going to advance yourself in life. Otherwise, you get into that toxicity and then you get depressed and bummed out. And it's the same with, like I said, even in trucking, it's just the same way. At some point, I've told guys, if you got a wife and kids and all that, don't go over the road. Get something local, box truck, day cab, tractor trailer, and just do something daily. I said, don't go out there and ruin your life, because I don't, I say, yeah, there's money in trucking. I wouldn't stay in it for your whole life. I would allow it to elevate you financially to a point where you can then transition into something else. But don't sit there and hang on to that steering wheel for 30, 40 years. And it's a different mind. There was the have and have nots back then. Everyone always talked about, boy, it must be nice to have banker's hours. We always joked about that in 30, 40 years ago. uh, now it's like, I don't want to work in an office. Like, what everyone wanted to do is, because I grew up in around Midland, Michigan, so the world headquarters for Dow Chemical. So, boy, if you were a PhD or an engineer, chemical engineer, something of the sorts, or you were a doctor or lawyer in town. Um, that town was very fluent back in the 80s and 90s. And the kids were all driving new cars, and they were spoiled. Um, it was a bad upbringing because you're not showing them any value in life. I actually worked with a guy. I was a crew leader for seasonal work for the county. And the one kid showed up in a new Mazda pickup. He goes, yeah, my dad wanted me to have safe wheels. So he went down to the Mazda dealer and put the truck on his Visa and bought it for the kid. Um, I've seen a lot of that crap. Um, it goes to say, what's that kid going to turn out if you're petting him comfortably like that at a young age with no responsibility? You're giving them nice things right away, and so they're going to come to expect it. Hey, Plate, how you doing there, my man? Um, yeah, you on the road, or you shut down for the night? So I'm just trying to hit on the points that I knew, and what mental health and trucking and drivers is being depressed out there, and especially being away from their family and loved ones. It's definitely it wreaks havoc on the mental mindset of a truck driver when God, especially when you're newlywed. I went over the road, and this is how bad it was for me back in 1997. My son was born in May of '97. June of '97, I got on a Greyhound bus and went and got my sleeper truck, and then I went over the road, and I was running hard for that next year doing that. And he was only going on 2 months old. So, life of a young truck driver back then. Looking back, I wouldn't have done that. But I didn't have any maturity, knowledge, or education to have or to know what I was doing wrong at that point in time. And I wouldn't encourage that on someone starting out. Like I said, if you're newly married and you have a child on the way, or a young or a baby, get a local job or find something else. Um, don't leave them high and dry, because it's going to be hard on you and them. Um, you know, Mental health and trucking, it's not only just you as a driver in behind the wheel, but look what the toll it takes on your kids and your wife, especially when dad's gone most of the time and somewhere around the country driving. So, you got to respect that as a driver. You got to respect your health, and you definitely got to respect the loved ones that worry about you, care about you, and give two shits about you. That you want to give them all the respect, and make sure everybody's happy. So it's not an easy life, um, making that balance. But anyhow, folks, I'm gonna let you go. The wife has the grill going. It's steaming. I'll get you one more pick around the yard here. Yard's looking now. You can see a little better without the sun glaring against the screen. The windmill. the windmill, the fan, the bearing went out in it, and that thing went. We were watching it, and it just flew across the yard here. Back you guys out. So the windmill, that butterfly bush was up front when we moved in, but it was overgrown into the driveway, so we were nearly stepping on it getting out of the car. I transplanted it back here, and that's really been very robust. So that's her butterfly bush right now. It's just doing phenomenal this year. Of course, the bird feeders, the Oriole feeder there, and then right next to me is the come on hummingbird feeder, bird bath. The backside, the backside over there is the Niger, and then that's our regular feed, and then the suet cakes there, one there, and then I did all that. I put the poles in, so it's a four post up, around there. But I put that stovepipe 4-inch stovepipe around the poles so the squirrels can't climb up there, and then along with the baffle, so we don't get no squirrels up there. We did in the early stages, but once an old timer showed me that's that kept, we don't have any squirrels. The only time we got squirrels is when the branches from the trees start growing out. So every year I got to prune everything back out here. Let me back that up. I got to prune everything back because the branches will start coming across, and they'll use those to launch on there. But that's the apple tree there, and all the apples are down in there. And yeah, so we're in a older community. So my neighbor's retired. My neighbor's here. Next two neighbors are retired. My neighbor next door to me is retired. The one across the street's retired. So everyone's retired. I don't want to get the wife in there. She doesn't like being on the camera. But she's over there grilling. So yeah, and then of course we got the sunsetter out here. Got that coming off the house. And like I said, all the decking. I got to restain this deck. That didn't hold up, and I hit the power washer on it last year. I got to hit it again this year. And then my little makeshift. But yeah, so I built this deck by myself in the summer of 2018 when I was home on the weekends. Talk about a turd show. Stripped it down and built it up. I had my son help me in a few areas, him and his friend, but not much. So with all the new steer stringers, I ran all those. This was all mud when we moved in here, so I leveled all that, put all that in after I did the deck. Of course, the new HVAC, and then from here over is all new siding. I put in a new window, and the garage had a window over there behind it, but I took it out because we knew the shed was going in, and I built that deck where the shed's sitting on, because the shed was right there at the neighbor's house. She gave it to me for free, so I just jacked it up, put it on a makeshift axle, and pulled it over with the golf cart across the yard. So that was last October. But yeah, it's never ending. But this yard, we built this yard because it stopped right there at the bird feeders, and then they just had weeds and everything there, so we pushed it up to the property line and grassed it, and then trimmed all the bushes and all that. So they let it go, let it get overgrown. So we have more yard, and more, and it's relaxing for both of us. We come out and walk the dogs, and we have some good conversations walking up and down the yard. It's a 100-foot yard, but we have conversations out here. The woods behind us, and wetlands back there, so we have a lot of privacy. But yeah, the grill on the deck there. We come out and we walk around, and we take time to be out here. And even at the campground, we'll walk, and we'll also take golf cart rides. And there's certain places we'll go and sit quietly and just watch a sunset, or in the water on the lake. But you need all that outlets. So to get out of the truck and say you're going to go to a heavy metal concert, and you know drink a lot of booze and stuff like that is not a good outlet when you get home. I think you can make sure you do healthy practices when you're out of the truck. That's all I can say, is just make sure what you do when you're out of the truck is healthy practices. Tommy there does it. He takes walks. Walking already gets the endorphins going, gets you in that good mindset, gets the dopamine's raised up in your brain, so you're getting in a more better mood, and get some good healthy food and hydrate right. But see different things, experience different things in life. This country still has beautiful aspects of it. You just got to know where to find them, and what your niche is and what gives you pleasure and lets you relax and unwind without being so distraught and upset and frustrated to where you wake up and you're angry and you hate the world and why you're here, and you're questioning your self-worth of being here and all that. So um, that's the best thing I can tell a driver. So outside of that, um, I'm gonna get back. She's making dinner. I may have to finish the yard tomorrow before we leave, and we may come to you on Saturday this week or the following week, Labor Day. Got the big brisket going on, so I may live stream that weekend actually, and show you guys, take you on the golf cart ride around there, and show you the lake and the dinner and all that jazz. Maybe throw some of that brisket up on the community post. So I appreciate y'all being here. I've rambled on long enough. Uh, and if there's anything, any of you drivers out there, hey, if you ever get into that dark spot, my email's in the description. For heaven's sakes, guys, reach out, email me, say, man, I just need someone to talk to. You know what? I'll I'll call you. You call me. I'll give you my number if it means that it's gonna help you get through the day because you got no one else to turn to talk to. We need to have that brotherhood to be out here and help each other because this country's still not going to move without truck drivers, until they decide when they can make these trucks do everything themselves. Until then, they still need us. But, don't ever do harm to yourself, man. I really like seeing you guys in the chat. Y'all bring something special to the table in discussion when I've talked to each and every one of you. So, um, reach out to each other. Make sure that line of communication's there so you got an outlet. So until next time, folks, stay safe, continue educating yourself. And at Gerald R. Ford Airport, big boy getting ready to land. Stay safe, continue educating yourself. Knowledge is learned, not taught, and we will see you all in the next video.